I take the light and I shine it in the darkest corners of your soul. And that is
Like
where
that.
most people don't want to go. Through trauma healing is somatics, and somatics is really just teaching you to be inside your body and be in your body and one with your body. And so many people do not know how to do that. A lot of people believe that they deserve to suffer, and they get so comfortable in those negative patterns.
Welcome back to Mental Fix, Coach's Corner. And today we have the great pleasure of speaking with Hilary Shawn. Hilary, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time today to sit down and speak with me a little bit about what you do and what makes you and your coaching business special. If you wouldn't mind sharing, how did you get into the environment and the opportunity that you now offer?
So I got into this. It's essentially what I've been doing my entire life. I was born into a family lineage of healers. My papa was a great healer in this area. And unfortunately, he did not want to be considered a witch. So he switched to Christianity after he would do powwows. He powwowed my mom's warts off of her hand. He was doing all the prayers over people, healing their ailments and all of those things. And unfortunately, he had to turn away from that due to judgment, of course, as we all have to do sometimes. Um,
Quick question. You said he used what to get rid of the warts?
Powwow.
Powwow.
He would do powwows and rain dances, and my mom had witnessed all of these things.
Now,
Um,
I'm sure many that are listening have heard of rain dances. What is a powwow? Am I saying it correctly?
yeah, it's like, Native American. It's done a lot in the Native American culture, where I have always been so drawn to Native American culture, and at this point I believe it's a past life thing. Um, which we can get into all of that as well. But because we did do the lineage thing, and there's no native, it's Eastern European, although there was, native cultures over there. Um, so like a prayer, it's like an affirmation or a prayer type thing over top of it. My mom was 12, and she said he would like take her behind the shed and do it, do the prayer over top of, and the next she was not allowed to tell anyone. And then she woke up the next day, and her warts were gone. And she said she looked under her sheet. She remembers looking under her mattress, like looking where they went, and they were gone. And he was doing this for a lot of people. And then once word got out, and people started speaking about it, he was considered a witch. And also his father was a voodoo witch. So like that's more of the dark and the black magic. We had a spell book and all of that, which is in the line. And I have a deep appreciation for that. I don't turn away to that. I don't use the dark. I use my healing energy for good and light. And that's where my modalities always go. I do heavily believe in karmic and black magic.
Energy.
Yes, and black and darkness. And I don't go there. I don't want to go there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think a lot of people would agree with this one. Is that when you say the word witch, people usually associate that with a woman, not a man witch.
Right.
So dive into that for a minute.
I mean, a witch could be anybody. Essentially, in my beliefs, are, witches were healers. We all have this power within us to heal
Mhm.
and to be our own healers. And, um, they were always so afraid of the metaphysical, something that couldn't be seen.
Mhm.
And that's why, there's that quote out there. Um, why were we questioning? I forget exactly how it goes, but why weren't we questioning the people that were burning the witches? Like that's massively dark, the
Mhm.
burning of
Mhm.
of of the powerful. So
Yeah.
it's, a lot of people have trouble, with energy work because it's unseen.
Mhm. I, I
Mhm.
I was listening to a conversation actually yesterday in regarding to history and what has happened in the past, and one of the gentlemen said, "What if the witch hunts really were the sacrifice of people that were doing things that shouldn't be done to children, for lack
Mm,
of better words, but it is being told to us in history is a completely different thing."
of
Right.
course.
So, and
Absolutely.
that's and that's what kind of seems to bring that misconception to a lot of people, because the moment you hear the word witch, you're like, oh no, but what if it's a good thing, right?
Of course, absolutely. And, there's white witches, and then there are, dark witches, and there are people who practice black magic and things like that. And because I have that tie to my family, and I know the spells that this man had casted, he had cast some
Mhm,
spells. So this is getting a little deep, but witches would always find me, or psychics would always find me, and no matter where I was, and would pull me out of the crowd, and they would tell me, and there was this woman in Miami, and I can always tell, as because I am an intuitive, I
mhm,
can always tell when someone is a witch, and when they've done light or dark, and I could see it in her eyes. But I worked with her a little bit. She pulled me out, and she had told me that there was a generational curse that was attached to me, and I believe it was this. So I've done a lot of deep healing work, and I've done a lot of work where I've gone away. I've worked with plant medicine. I've done ceremonies in Peru. I went upstate New York, and I've worked with different plant medicinals, and I freed a lot of my ancestors. And that's generations and generations and generations, and it
mhm.
was so beautiful. And I had been working for a long time to release that generational curse.
If How could somebody identify that there could possibly be under a curse, or their family could be under a curse that they're not even aware of? Is it easy for the average person to see this, or do you have to have a particular intuition for this?
Right. Like, for me, it was easier because I have the intuition, and I just have that sense of knowing, and then that woman confirming for me. But speaking to someone who has intuitive qualities, or a psychic medium of some sort. A lot of people they just feel it in their own intuition, even if they're not super intuitive. They may
Mhm.
feel like there's always just a black cloud over them, or, things always go wrong. And that can also be mindset, you know, but um, do a deep dive in a past life regression, something like that, or get hypnotized, to deep and to go deeper into that and to find out
Okay, so let's kind of take that first path. You said to do a past cleanse. What did
past
you call
life regression.
past life regression? What
Mhm.
is that, and how do you do that?
So you go, and it's essentially being hypnotized, and then you hop back into finding out where you were and who you were in previous lifetimes.
And I'm assuming you, as a practitioner of this, walk the person through this process.
I honestly am not qualified to do that yet.
Okay.
I am hoping to do so. Let's say I probably could with my modality of hypnosis, but I don't have that direct route yet. I haven't studied that direct route. Um,
But it is a form of hypnosis.
mhm,
Okay, you
mhm.
just have to study to that level to be able to guide a person down
Right,
that path.
right.
Is it possible for a person, when they are trying to locate this past point in their past? I feel like I'm using the same word over and over. Is it possible for them to get lost?
I think anything's possible.
Okay.
What we're doing is taking a deep dive into our subconscious mind, and there are many, many layers, and you never know what you'll find there. There's a book, it's my favorite book ever. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters.
Who's it by?
Oh, I want to say Bob Weiss. I don't have it here. I could be
That's
completely
okay.
off.
I'll look
But
it up
then
later.
Many Lives, Many Masters, and I've read it twice, and he's a hypnotist.
Hmm.
And he has another degree, and I'm not sure what it may be, but he's hypnotizing this woman who has just have, tons of anxiety and just tons of depression and things like that.
Hmm.
And she starts going into her past lives, and he just rolls with it. And it's the most incredible thing, because these are where all of her traumas come from.
Hmm.
And again, that's ancestral.
Where?
That's ancestral. It's figuring all of that out, what you've been through in your previous lifetimes.
How far back do you think it goes? How many generations?
It can go back. I mean, there's no clear answer to that. It can go back
Huh.
as far as, anything.
So many of us could be walking around holding a generational curse for something that our great, 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 great
Yes.
relative did, and we have no idea.
Yes.
Do you feel the people that are, or at least to others, look like they are just going through life unscathed and everything just rolls out for them? Do you think it is because they're choosing not to allow the past of their ancestors hold them down, or do you think it is that they don't have anything in the past? Is
They
that
may not have
possible?
anything. They may not have anything, you know, and then there's also being an old soul.
Hmm.
Like I always describe myself as an old soul, but a young spirit.
How
You
would you
know,
explain
many
that?
different layers. There's tons of different layers. So I just have a very deep esoteric knowledge. I've just always had this deep sense of knowing, and like I've experienced this many times before, and I know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
However, I chose to reincarnate into a family uh that never listened to me and didn't value my words. You know, I was the baby, and it was like everything I said, there was a veil thrown over my words.
Hmm.
So I had to teach myself, you know, self-worth and that I mattered and all of these things, you know, and I have dealt with tons of trauma in this lifetime. And when my daughter was born, I knew. I said I'm carrying a light worker inside of me. Um, I really, you know, nurtured my womb when I carried my daughter, and then she came out exactly as I had said. She was born with a white patch of hair right here, almost like a halo. Um, and being very, very, very in tune and just connected to the spirit realm.
Hmm.
I just, you know, that was the physical sign for the people who have judged me here on this earth plane.
Hmm.
And my daughter, her knowledge, like I would sit her on the edge of a counter when she was, you know, like a table, and when she was not even a year old, and people would, you know, like be so scared. And I'd be like, she's all right. She knows what she's doing. And she did. She never fell.
Hmm.
She would always just sit there on the edge and just, she knew what she was doing, you know, and she continues to just know what she's doing and spit knowledge to me that I'm like, her soul is way older than mine. Like she's lived way more lifetimes. And like I know that she's been my mother and my grandmother in past lives. Like it goes deep.
How do you apply this one particular area when you are coaching or working with people? Where does this help somebody, or what problem would this help somebody solve?
A lot. Trauma,
Okay.
you know? Trauma is first and foremost because that's where we pick up. And again, that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, if you read that, it will give you more of an understanding
Hmm.
of, you know, how deep our trauma can go.
Hmm.
You know, it's not just childhood trauma, it's generational. And just having a deeper knowledge of things beyond what we can physically see,
Hmm.
that's what sets me apart as a coach, as a practitioner, than let's say somebody who maybe had studied and gone to school and just learned from textbook, but doesn't have the life experience,
Hmm.
have that deeper knowledge. You know, and I may not be for some people because they don't have a grasp, or they don't have an understanding, or, you know, a belief in these things. So it can go both ways.
Right. And how do you use these tools in order to guide the person through the process? So if let's say somebody was a brand new person that has never worked with you, and they said, explain to me what it is that you do, or what I can expect in a session with you, what would that look like?
I mean, it differs. It varies for everybody. I use my intuitive nature, you know, when necessary.
Hmm.
There are times also where I kind of have to not shut it off, but dim it down a bit. Um, so we can get into, I'll go over my modalities. I'm a life coach, a mindfulness coach, I'm trauma practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, a hypnotist, a superfood mentor, and a yogi.
Wow, that's a long list. That's impressive.
I'm also being trained in tapping, EFT, and then two other types of neurological things, deepening my practice in hypnosis, and I believe
Be-
that's it. I have 5 more certifications on the way.
the things that you are able to do now, which one would you say is the most used and the most effective?
Reiki, It's energy work, it's energy healing, which
Mhm,
is that's the lineage that I come from, and that's what
mhm.
we've used for generations and generations. And the coaching, the life and mindfulness coaching. I am stepping into mediumship because I've got the power. So doing psychic readings and all of
Mhm.
those, the angel readings, uh,
The
which those are usually very, very much asked for in our
and
society.
a lot of it is connected, is it not? From my
Yeah.
understanding, I could be wrong, but the when you're doing energy work, how can a person who is not aware that the energy that they are surrounded by is negative even begin to themselves with, like, let's say that they cannot be constantly talking to you or being coached by you, but outside of their sessions, what can a person do at home that would just alleviate some of that negative energy pain?
There's a lot of different things that I teach, and
Mhm,
again, it's not one way for everyone. It just depends. They can either I can teach them a cleansing exercise. I also have a metaphysical shop where I make really beautiful boxes and beautiful essential oil sprays and
mhm,
smudge sticks. So they're rose enrobed smudge sticks. So it's sage, okay, and then I wrap them in roses and I Reiki charge them, and you cleanse your space with those smudge sticks. So
mhm,
smudging is also a really beautiful process. um, they could repeat affirmations. I could teach them a meditation to do,
mhm.
breath work.
Right.
There's a lot of different things. Breath work seems to always be my go-to,
Mhm,
but I'm in the study of, like, through trauma healing is somatics, and somatics is really just teaching you to be inside your body and be in your body and one with your body. And so many people do not know how to do that. So it depends on if you're a freeze, if you go into freeze mode, flight mode, or fawn mode,
mhm.
and we can dive into that at another time. But some people are just always in their body so much that you teach them to orient to something around the room, something outside of their body, because they're always so much in their body. So breath work may not be something to teach somebody that is
Do you
constantly.
do you feel that people learn this techniques and are able to do them, or is there hesitancy to it?
Oh, there's tons of hesitancy, tons of hesitancy.
Why? Why do you think people are so hesitant to doing something that others have done that is shown results and proves that it works?
A lot of people um, believe that they deserve to suffer, or
Really?
they're so comfortable in their suffering,
Oh,
or so comfortable living in that, that whole, it takes 21 days to form a habit. It's just habitual, you know, and they get so comfortable in those negative patterns.
there it is, the comfort spot.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. Or they don't have the drive to change because they're just so comfortable in, it's just like when I teach, or not teach, but my superfoods, being a superfood mentor. These superfoods are so incredible, and it was the past and it's the future, with all of the chemicals that they're spraying, the glyphosate, the Roundup, all of that. Okay. And my one of my clients who went on this program, her blood pressure dropped 100 points.
Wow.
She said her doctor almost fell on the floor. He said he has never seen that happen without medication,
By simply changing her diet.
with these superfoods and staying on this protocol. And it is diet, and that's what people don't understand. That's where the mental, the depression, the anxiety, all of that.
Mhm.
Another person on my team, her client or her friend actually followed the protocol. They had 50% kidney function. After following this protocol, it went up to 100%.
Wow. Now,
It's
did
just
they
the
do
proof is
a kidney cleanse, or is it just superfoods?
I'm pretty sure, because she has another system that she kind of incorporates with the superfoods. So I'm
Mm.
pretty sure it was also implementing this other. She may have done the kidney cleanse. Um,
When you
however,
say superfoods, can you give me examples of what they are?
it is a combination of live organic dehydrated superfoods that come from an organic lake bed in Utah. Our company specifically, the company's name is Purium.
Mhm.
Dave Sandoval, the owner, the creator, is this magnificent man who just cares so deeply about this. And he I'm not sure if it's his child, but linking gut health to autism. Okay, so he has a book, the Green Bible, and then he has another book about gut health and how it's linked to autism. So he just has a deep, deep passion for this. And our crops are grown on an organic lake bed in Utah
Hmm.
in regenerative soil, sprayed with volcanic ash spring water, volcanic ash water. Okay. We've been working with the same farmers for 28 years.
Nice. So
And
it's a good
there's
product.
no way that there's no spraying, Monsanto, none of that to be on our crops. And you can go through what's the word I'm looking for? Like the place where they, are putting the foods together and they're dehydrating the foods.
Hmm.
So it goes live. You put the water, the water hits it, it's live, the enzymes. And then it has a shelf life of 2 years, but it's a combination of Biomedic, which is a supplement we take that is clinically proven to lift the glyphosate out of your gut, which is insane.
Right.
And people do not know enough about glyphosate. Okay. And then there are the superfood shakes. There's a power shake and a super meal. And it is essentially, for somebody like superfoods for dummies would be, it's crushed up, fruits and vegetables. And it's in a powder form and it's delicious. It is delicious, and it's high vibrational, which is the difference. Okay, because there are things out there that people are doing just to lose weight, but it's filled with fillers and toxic stuff and chemicals and all of these things. Like, this is just all natural. It's in then you have the super aminos, which is huge. It's a vegan protein, pre-digested, so your liver doesn't have to do nothing, no diabolical waste.
Hmm.
Incredible. That's where, like, my arms, you can see my arms, I got a little out of shape from being in Costa Rica, and it just popped me right back in.
Hmm.
Um, and then there is apothecary, which is it's a dark tart cherry juice you drink at night. It's an elixir, and it's like equivalent to 100 blueberries, the antioxidant level, and just gentle sleep, gentle rest. And then there's also a super cleanser, which is a all natural cleanser. All the packaging is compostable. You can
Nice.
replant your seeds
Hmm.
in these packages, and these packages actually clean out and make the soil that you're planting in even better, because we also know that the soils that a lot of people are planting in are no bueno.
Yeah. It's
You
hard
know,
to find clean soil. It really is.
it's
It's sad.
really scary. It's really, really scary, and all of this, so getting through that, all of that is part of my healing, is also how I help people heal. And if you want to heal, you can do all the work, but that's a big, big part of it, gut health.
Right. It's you can't say that you want to get in shape and be eating at McDonald's every day. It's just not going to happen. And
Right.
and it's a people I believe people do not realize the effect that their gut health and the foods that they eat are having on their brain health, which is
Oh,
then affecting their mood. And then you have anxiety, depression, and all of these other issues. And
yeah.
then they start taking medicine for it, and the medicine start having side effects. So their body starts to react to those side effects, and they need more medicine. And it's an ongoing cycle.
Right.
How long do you feel that you have to work with a person before they begin to feel or see changes?
A month,
Wow.
honestly. And it's unfortunate for me. It's like when I was, I'm still a hair and makeup artist, but the people would always say, "Oh, I can go so much longer when you do my hair color and my haircut because it's so good."
The energy is there, the positive
It's
energy.
energy. It's the energy, and it just does. It just does. And it's unfortunate for me because I would love to keep my clients longer, but I'm grateful to know that, I'm that powerful, that
Hmm.
people feel that good so quickly. And usually I'll have my clients sign up at least a month. That's dedication to self, you know.
Now, when you say a month, does this mean that they are doing something every single day? Like, is it a 30-day process, or is it just there's a few sessions that you talk to them and you give them instructions? Like, how would that process look like?
Usually it's once a week.
Once a week.
It
Okay.
could be any, if they need me every day, I have a system for every day as well. Or a schedule, I should say, but usually it's once a week, Reiki coaching.
So that's your preferred method. And do you do only one-on-one, or do you do group sessions? What's your preferred method?
My preferred method is one-on-one.
One-on-one?
Feel like they get the most out of it. Now the the establishment that I am in the midst of creating with my partner, I will be doing
Group
group.
sessions.
Hmm.
And do you guys have plans to do courses and classes, retreats?
Yeah.
Can you kind of dive into that? Because I feel like that's what is lacking out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resorts, and there's a lot of places to go to sit on the beach, but I wish I could go sit on the beach and also get healing and mental work done at the same time.
Yeah.
And not just for me, for my entire family. That would be amazing.
That's a huge, huge goal of mine, and I always envision it. And you know how much I travel. I love to travel. So I believe that that ties into that,
Hmm.
and the reason I travel is maybe to see the places that I'm eventually going to be teaching retreats in.
Hmm. Do you feel that the language barrier stops energy work, or is it fluent in all languages?
Oh, it's fluent in all languages. It's
So,
fluent in all languages. I actually worked with a healer in Bali years
mhm.
ago. I mean, he could barely speak any English, but the work that he had done and the small amounts of words that he did, write down on the piece of paper for me, it was so powerful. I carry it with me to this day. I use it almost every day. I remind myself of something that he wrote to me.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Do you have any stories that you could share of past clients and some of the things that they went through, so that people that are listening could possibly
Relate.
relate
That's
to the
I
story,
think it's like
essentially? Yeah.
relate to the story, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So clients, or can I like do some stories that are like, um,
Whatever will relate them, the message, whatever will help people to understand how you can help them versus other people.
okay. So I have a lot, synchronicities are huge for me. Like I have 1111 tattooed here. That's always been a really, really big one for me. Synchronicities.
What does that mean? What does synchronicity mean?
Synchronicities. Oh, I love this. So um where you see a repeating number often, you'll see repeating numbers somewhere, and that's a sign from the universe.
Okay,
These are
signs.
called angel numbers. And this is more along the line, like, this is what I teach. This is
Okay.
what I love because I am so deeply connected to the other realms,
Hmm.
and these types of conversations really can get kind of like scary for people because it's like the unknown, and it's like, or they don't believe in the existence, or et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's real. And the things that they experience with me or just being in contact with me is like, whoa, the synchronicities, if you see repeating number sequences, or if you see a red cardinal, you see a butterfly, you
Okay.
see
What do those things mean? When you see those, what
their
does that
signs.
mean?
Their
It's a
signs
sign
from
of
source. Their signs from source. Whatever message it is that you're looking to receive or that you may need in that moment. For example, these are not clients, but this is some for me. So I was going through a really rough time, going through a breakup years ago. And I came home. My great uncle had passed away, who was like one of my besties. I loved him so much, an older gay man. And I was just feeling lost. I was feeling sad. And I had always looked for signs. I've lost like over 45 people in my life.
Mhm.
I'm 40 years old. So
Wow.
death has always been a very big thing to me, but that lets me know not only am I very connected to the spirit realm, which I always knew, um, I'm an earth angel. And I've always known that I was an earth angel, and the things that I can do for people really just helps them so much.
Mhm.
And it's unseen. It's unseen. And that's where a lot of people, have trouble. I know it and I can feel it. But some people either really understand it and are just like, oh my goodness, when they're open to it. When they're not open to it is when there's trouble.
When people are, if they don't know how to ask the proper question of, life, give me an answer to this question, they will just go right past that synchronicity without even realizing that it's there.
Oh, absolutely. There's people who are blessed that don't even know that they're blessed, and it's
Yes.
not even universe, because I always like to say source, because some people don't believe in universe. Some people believe it's God.
Mhm.
Some people believe it's Buddha. Some people believe, so I like to use the word source, because whatever source it is, even though me, being a yogi and it's all one.
Mhm.
It's all one, so whichever you want to choose is fine. It's whoever you want to think is, if it's that tree over there, like, that's fine. That's your, your choice.
I'm
So
I covered that in my video, "Do Prayers Come True?" I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but in there I essentially break it down in that same concept, is that whether people that are very spiritual, to them prayer is essentially affirmations, and to people that are not as spiritual, affirmations is their prayer. It accomplishes the same thing. It's just a use of different words.
yes,
Like I remember I met in Mexico, there was a guy that was doing prayers, and I was talking to him, not prayers. He was doing the before you go down into the sonotas, they do, yeah,
cenotes.
they do the yogas, and he was doing it in a language that didn't sound like Spanish. And I asked him, okay, I believe he said he spoke five languages, but he said the reason why he does it in language that he was in is because to him it feels more powerful than when he does it in Spanish.
Yeah,
And I can see that because, for example, if I was to say a prayer in English versus saying it in a different language, I don't know why, but it just feels more like it has more power when it's done in a language that I don't understand.
right.
Does that seem crazy?
No, of course. I mean, that's why a lot of the times I'm always traveling and I appreciate the different cultures so much more, you
Hmm.
know? And I mean, there's people who speak light codes and light language. There's people who speak in tongues.
Hmm.
I know that my mom had had an experience when she's very much into Christianity. And she, the spirit had taken over her and she was speaking in tongues. And there's some people that may have a negative,
Right.
on that. So it's all, and that's what has happened kind of in this world. It's unfortunate is that not nobody's really allowed to have their own opinion anymore. And people are just so opinionated and it's like you can't be this way, you have to be this way. And it's just been so like if that was her experience, example, I had worked with plant medicine, ayahuasca.
Hmm.
Ayahuasca is from a tree in the Amazon, and ayahuasca took me on a 2-day journey. And
Wow.
right next to me was a man who was Polish who did not speak English. Okay, and the second night, he he was next to me where you're laying there, and his foot started moving like this, and immediately my head said serpent, and serpent is not good. So
Like a rattlesnake tail.
yes, that's
Mhm.
exactly what represented for me. And he started speaking English and he was saying, wow, ha ha ha, wow, it's a party. And the demon inside of him was mocking all of us. I think there was like 9 of us, there may have been 12. Um, Mocking all of us and laughing and just kept laughing and just saying, oh, and wow, it's a party. And so he's speaking English. Now, for me, what this came up and represented for me was my ex's alcoholism and realizing and coming to the realization that the alcoholism was a demonic presence inside of my ex's body and it was
Hmm.
not my ex. Okay, and that's why they call alcohol spirits. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've ever dove into that, but it truly is.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so I was crying and the shaman thought I was crying because I was scared of this, so they moved me into a different room and it wasn't. It was just, I found compassion for my ex in this moment.
Hmm.
So this lasted for a very, very, very long time into the morning. And then as soon as they're holy watering all of us and saging all of us. And then as soon as this demonic presence left him, he left out gas for like 15 seconds and then he fell on the floor. You could hear him
Hmm.
fall on the floor. Now we had a sharing circle the next day, and his sharing circle was now realize this every single person in there was having a different experience based on this man's experience. Okay.
Hmm.
His experience was so positive for him. He said, I mean, but negative forms too. He had to look at the first girl he loved who was sitting next to him, who was actually really next to me. And he had to look at her in her eyes and say, I don't love you anymore. And then he fell under this demonic presence. Okay. He said he had to turn into every single person that he's ever judged in his life. So he judged a drug addict. He became a heroin addict. He was shooting up heroin under this presence. He became every single woman he's ever been awful to.
And this is what he experienced during
This is
this
what he's
journey.
experiencing. And then there was another woman who was also a healer there. She went over to like hug him during this, and she became his mother, who had died a few months before, who he never got to say goodbye to.
Mhm.
So under that, where some of us are like, oh my gosh, and scared, he was having the most beautiful journey he's ever had,
Wow.
and
Mhm. That really speaks on perspective. everybody
right.
has a different perspective. Just because we're all in the same room witnessing the exact same thing, we're all experiencing a completely different event.
Always, always.
Mhm.
And depending on your layers and what you've been through and your past traumas and stuff, that is also how you're going to experience
Right.
oh, this situation. So there are so many everything, and this is one of my favorite lines that I've ever created. I mean, I'm sure other people have said it, but every situation is multifaceted.
Right.
There, it's multifaceted. There is not just one way, which is like how society has just really come up with this, like it has to be this way, or it's not. It's like, where was it that we could discuss different avenues?
Why do you think we always tend to default to a negative, fearful thought? The moment anything happens that's outside of our comfort zone, that's different. Why does our brain default to, oh no, and out of all of the things that could happen in the ether, it chooses the one negative one and focus on it to the point that it drives somebody to a panic attack.
Trauma, conditioning.
Okay. How is the conditioning done to cause a person to do that?
Like say that was what you always saw your mother do, and that's how she always handled situations. Okay. Or go back to a traumatic experience that you had, your first traumatic experience that was similar in alignment with that, and that was your first reaction
Mhm.
to go into flight, and get
Mhm.
completely anxious.
And at what age would you say that these types of techniques or responses are embedded into us at?
Oh, it's different for everyone.
Do you
It's
think
different for
people in
everyone.
their 30s and 40s could pick up a trait like that as quickly as a 2-year-old?
Yes, of course.
Hmm.
If it's a car accident, or if you're,
True.
look and you're about to get hit by a car, like hell yeah, that's going to be super traumatic to you.
Right.
And more than likely, you're going to pick up some sort of, probably PTSD, and you're going to have to work through that if you wish.
Hmm. Do you think the average person has the internal ability to heal themselves?
Absolutely.
Why don't they?
Again, comfortability in the wallowing,
Hmm.
comfortability in what they've always known, which could feel safe, which is actually not safe.
Hmm.
What always felt comfortable to me and what I thought was safe, I didn't learn until my late 30s and early 40s, and still learning that it was not safe. It was just always comfortable. And the types of partners I choose feel safe
Hmm.
does not mean that's
That's
necessarily
what's needed, right?
right.
And this is where my next question is, do you think that it's a good idea for a coach and a customer or a client to begin to be friends?
Mm, I don't really like to set parameters, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if it happens, maybe
But
it's will to be.
do you feel that you're still capable of having the same impact as a coach when you begin to have a relationship, not a relationship, but meaning just a friendship with a person that you are coaching or mentoring? Or do you think that there should be always this separation
Yeah.
of no feeling or emotional connection at all?
I mean, you have to separate yourself
Hmm.
especially as a practitioner, or if you're a
Hmm.
therapist, you have to. It's a must,
Right.
especially legalities and things like that.
True.
But on a personal level, the divide and separation is what we're trying to get away from. So if it is to happen and it happens, it may happen, but as long as there's not expectations, coming from
I, my question is not so much on expectations, but more on effectiveness. For example, when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got a problem with this and this," and they are somebody that I know and I'm friends with, my answer to them is going to be a little bit different than it's a complete stranger who I don't care if I hurt their feelings, right? Sometimes you gotta, sometimes a person needs to hear the truth. And the people that have an emotional connection to us don't always tend to be the ones to give it to us.
Oh, see, now I'm opposite. So, and I think it's just a preference, it depends on, like, some people may have a very hard boundary. You have to remember your boundaries, and you have to, know what's appropriate.
Mhm.
And um I would say I'm what sets me apart from other practitioners, okay, is not only my deep esoteric and knowledge from the spirit realm, okay, but also my authenticity. I I'm going to give it to you straight. And this is the best way that I describe myself, okay,
Hmm.
is I take the light and I shine it in the darkest corners of your soul. And that is
Like
where
that.
most people don't want to go. Most people don't want to go there.
Say that
They want.
again. Say that whole statement again. That was beautiful.
So me, Hilary Shawn, I like to shine light in the darkest corners of your soul. And we're going to get the cobwebs and the dust and the dirt out of there. And we're going to let the light shine through that stained glass window or whatever window it is that you want to paint, thinking that your soul looks like. And the light just shines in and it's going to be bright again. It's not going to be dark. It's not going to be dirty. It's not going to be dusty. We're not hiding it anymore. We're not hiding from it anymore or running from it.
Well, what do you tend to find in that corner with most people?
Fear,
Is that the only thing? Just
sad,
fear?
sadness, and a lot of the times anger is really just deep sadness.
Almost like it would be driven by resentment at that point, or I guess just pain.
Yeah, it's driven by many different things.
It,
Many different things.
when you first shine a light on those things in people's subconscious, what's their initial reaction usually?
Oh, it just depends, honestly. Like there's not one answer for that. Someone could
Mm.
get angry, someone could shut down and cancel the rest of their appointment. Someone could cry. I think a lot is crying, you know,
So,
a lot is
so let's say that you had 10 people that you took through this process. How
Mhm.
many would stick with it once that little light, that little pain point has been touched? Do people tend to stick through it, or is this where you tend to lose a lot of people? Because this is it's probably that point, judging by your thoughts now, is that this is the point where the people that do stop, you want to reach out and go, you just had your first tiny breakthrough and here
Yeah.
you are quitting. Like this, is that the process that kind of happens often?
Yeah, I would say probably 7 out of 10, and that's super it is, and that's where you have to detach yourself. You have to detach yourself, and you can't take it personal, and you have to know it's not personal, and they're on their own journey, and they'll come back, when they're ready and if they're ever ready.
Do they, when they come back, are they a better student?
Yes, because usually that's on their own will, and they realize how powerful the practice was,
Hmm.
and they've rid of their ego a bit, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Personally, that one I know.
Mhm. But a
Interesting.
lot of people are just, a lot of people are afraid to invest in themselves.
Why is that? Because there's so many coaches, so many positive speakers and motivators and courses. I mean, the web is filled with this information, but yet stop anxiety is still a highly used search. It ranks almost every day. So why is it that people are so hesitant to invest in themselves?
Lack of self-worth, fear. I would say fear is the biggest one, whether it's fear around money,
Hmm.
fear of what they're going to find.
So it's not so much a fear of it not working, it's the fear of it actually working and them finding out and facing the truth about themselves.
Mhm.
Ooh, so
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the
absolutely.
depth.
Again, people don't wanna go there, you
It
know?
scares them.
I could shine a light and they'll pull the curtain. You
Right.
understand?
Hmm.
The other way that I always have described it is you've got this pot, okay? You've got this boiling pot inside of you, and sometimes it's on simmer. It's on simmer, but the more emotions you throw into that pot, the more it starts to boil. And the more you hold that in, the more it's going to overflow. And eventually it's all going to come spewing out. You understand?
Love that. Yeah.
I like to paint pictures for people. I like to speak metaphorically and just, really create imagery for
Mhm.
people. And that's one of my favorite ones because it works for me who is always I've been an artist my whole life. So that's just how I explain things, to give people visuals.
Hmm. I've noticed that most people that are spiritual in the healing realms, artists, creativity, very few engineers, math people, scientists that are in this realm. I would not consider myself an engineering mindset, but I am more of like a mathematical person than I am a scientific person. But yet
Right.
I find a lot of interest in this world, in this realm, and a lot of the things that are just unexplained. I don't know why, but it is something that I'm drawn to. And I also feel energies. One of my best experiences, I would say, is I was at a casino once, sitting at a table by myself, and a gentleman came over with a cigarette. It was kind of loud, annoying. I kind of wish, I didn't really want him to be sitting next to me. He sat down right next to me, and for the 20 some minutes that he was sitting there, with that negative energy, after he got up and left, my entire right side of my body felt sore. Like I just
Hmm.
absorbed all of that negative energy. And I was sitting there just like, what just happened? What did I just experience? And it's moments like that that have woken me up. Um, why do you think people, obviously, I'm not the only one that feels this, right? There are people that have said, I walked into a room and it just felt kind of right? I mean,
Yeah.
people feel this stuff. Why are they so numb to it? Why are they blind to it? Why are we not the spiritual beings that we're supposed to be?
Again, fear and conditioning, it really is fear and conditioning. And that's the thing, that the question, I would always get so frustrated sometimes, because it's like, it's energy. And, you know, you have to learn to protect your energy. That's a big
Right.
one. That's a really hard one. And a lot of people don't know how.
So
Um,
let's stop right there for 1 second. 3 tips that you would give somebody in order to protect their energy.
okay. So one exercise, I can give my exercises that I teach. So one, and one that was big for me was, you just envision a shield, or a shield of white light, or a bubble of white light,
Hmm.
or whatever color you want it to be, protecting you, okay, and shielding you from whatever energy. You can also envision a mirror, okay, and whatever is coming towards you just bounces right back. Okay, that's how you protect your energy. I also make, from my metaphysical shop, I make a aura cleansing spray. Okay, and it's a combination of essential oils, and you spray yourself before you go into any room. And then when you leave, or go and you meet it with whatever negative energy it may be, and then when you leave, you spray yourself with the aura cleansing spray.
Hmm.
Or you can do like a cleanse, where you go get in the shower, and you cleanse yourself of the energy from the day. But the protection, you have to think of yourself as a sponge, and you don't want to absorb. So you have to create this barrier from all of those external energies that you do not want to penetrate your aura.
Hmm.
Okay, so you have to envision protecting your aura, okay, and protecting yourself energetically from these negative energies, or even entities. Sometimes an entity can get stuck on you. So it's really, really important. And there's a lot of people out there that don't really realize that they're carrying those things around with them, you know?
Hmm. So, how much do you feel intention has to do with these practices? For example, we all take showers daily, but very
Mhm.
few of us understand. And I recently kind of, the light bulb went off for me that the shower is the time or the place for us to cleanse negative energy. But why is it that all the people that are taking showers daily are coming out more pissed off than they did going in?
I mean, people are just on autopilot. The majority of the world is on autopilot, and you're just getting in there. And I'm guilty.
Hmm.
I'll fall out of my meditation schedule, or I'll fall out of, and I know that it just makes me feel so good, but societal pressure, societal norms, just like falling back into those routines and those unhealthy patterns, going on autopilot.
So you're
For
trying to
example,
say,
I go ahead.
I'll say even though you are a healer, you still have your bad moments and you still have
Of
bad
course,
habits.
of course.
Because people think that just because somebody's a coach or a healer that they're perfect, and they kind of almost expect them to be, when they don't realize they're still human.
Well, I love that you say that, because my whole entire life I've been judged, and it is because of the light that's inside of me. Besides my physical appearance, there is a light that I carry inside of me that people, usually they want a piece of it, but when they realize that I come with so much light and positivity, then they get like envious and icky. All their
Mhm.
it, all
I,
the it comes out.
I was
So
gonna say, why would you be getting judged? Because you don't seem like the kind of person that would do harm to others or to be malicious. So why are people being negative towards you?
well, that's it. And also my strength, I've got a very, and people just think I'm just so strong that I'm indestructible, you know what I mean? Or I'm, It's just it had been a way of my entire life. I was harassed in school. I had to switch schools because I was harassed, and then I was harassed in that school, and it all came down to jealousy.
Wow.
I've experienced a lot of that my whole life. And even when I, got older, and some of these women, one being a witch, even when one of the situations said, I saw how those girls treated you. And it was really bad, and it was awful. It was on a movie set that I was working on when I was,
Mhm.
doing hair for TV and film. So a lot of people get, and I've always been told I'm intimidating. Okay. And that's partially
Same here.
because, yes, and I've got the light within me, and I've got the knowledge, and people can see that. They don't know they can see that, but they can see that. And then I'm kind, and I choose to be kind because I also can verbally slice if I want to. I have that part of me too. I just choose this way. But it's also my exterior and my look and my physical presence. So I was going to be working with this a yoga studio, and I was doing sessions in there. I was doing Reiki, and it was amazing and powerful, but they were a little too commercial,
Hmm.
and I bring in more the spirit and the ethereal. So she was very concerned about what people were going to think, which was the first red flag, right?
Right.
I was doing, because I have my associates in graphic design, so the I was creating like flyers for the events and stuff. And one of
Hmm.
my photos, I put one of my photos, which is very ethereal and very goddess like. And she just kept dragging her feet. And I, as an intuitive, already know why she's dragging her feet. So you can't hide anything from me. But at one point she's like, well, can't you like pick a different picture? You just look too much like a goddess. And that right there was the moment where I was like, I will not be working with this person, because my whole life coming from a small town, people have always tried to just dim my light. And I dimmed my light for others, and I dumbed down my power and what I have internally, and this gift that I have to share with others, just to protect other people's egos and to protect their ick, because they don't have that. So that was really telling for me, and also telling how much work that person has to do yet in their life. And also that I don't want to work with someone like that.
When you finally realize that people, or that you are dumbing yourself down and not being at your full potential, what
Mhm.
happened in your life that once you realize that, what changes begin to occur?
Oh, I've done it. That's a pattern that I fall into sometimes. And I would say the first time when I was doing it, I'd worked at a salon with a whole bunch of girls, and I was one of the top sellers, and there's so much judgment on me and just so much jealousy. And because that happened in school, there were girls that were jealous, and they made fun of me, and I picked up an eating disorder and all types of things. So I picked up this pattern of like being like, oh, like their clients would come in and be like, oh, what's Hillary wearing today? What's she? Because I was so out of the box.
Hmm.
They would be like, oh, what's Hillary's hair look like today? And so I started being like, they'd be like, oh my gosh, you look so cool. Or, oh my gosh, it's so, and I would be like, oh, but do you see this pimple on my face? But, oh, do you see like how, and I would point out, the flaws on myself. And then I started becoming super, super insecure about my body.
Just by trying to calm their
Yes.
comments down. I'm
Well, no, to make them feel better, which putting
right.
myself down is not going to make someone else feel better. But
No.
at that point, it was like I was so nervous about how these coworkers' attitudes were going to change towards me, that I was just trying to make me look less than,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know?
I know. I honestly, I'm kind of surprised that a person with your skills and background would be involved in that industry, because anytime, the guy that cuts my hair operates out of a salon, and
Mhm.
when he's doing my kids' hair or mine, I hear things. I just have though that kind of a brain.
Yes.
I'm always
Right.
listening, and
Right.
my gosh, the negative energy there is horrible. It's
Yeah.
complaining, it's nagging. So why are you in that space, if when we're talking about protecting our own energy, right? Or protecting our energy from the outside forces, why would you be in that industry knowing that it's filled with such negativity?
Well, that was a long time ago. That was like almost 20 years ago.
Okay, so you kind of grew out of that,
Yes.
realizing what you were trying to do. Got it.
Right. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't happen, because then I got in the TV and film industry in New York, and that
It's even
same
worse.
thing happened with me on this movie set, where the people were treating me like that and kicking me out of places because I was skinny, and uh, their own insecurities. And And then again, those girls had apologized to me later, but I had a healer actually. And here's another way that things just the synchronicities. Here's an example for a synchronicity. I was on the verge of tears because one of the girls that was harassing me was supposed to be my friend. And they were all talking about me. And I knew they were talking about me intuitively, but I just wanted to sit there and do my job. And I was sick and I didn't have much of a voice. I had a healer sit in my chair. Okay. And this woman told me she was a healer. She was a background person, background for this show.
Hmm.
Somehow. And she sat in my chair. Of course, there are no coincidences, okay, ever in life. Sits in my chair and she said, people really are drawn to you. She's like, they're drawn to your light. She's like, and you're gorgeous. Why wouldn't they be drawn to you? She's like, but then they realize just how beautiful your light that you carry inside of you is. She's like, so
Scares them.
not only are you beautiful on the outside, but you're so much more beautiful on the inside. And then they become envious. And she was siphoning what goes on in my brain and what I was thinking, but you don't want to say things like that about yourself. Like that
Right.
makes you feel, totally self-involved. And the tears fell. The tears just fell and I was crying so hard and she was like, it's okay. Like, I see you. And then she brought over a hematite. It's like this shiny, grayish, silvery stone. And
Mm.
she's like, this will protect you from all this negative energy around you. And then she handed me, in fact, where is it? In fact, let me see if I can find it here. I know I have it in here. She handed me her deck of cards and she said, pick a card. And I picked it and it was the Empress. And she was like, that is you. Never forget who you are. Oh my gosh, it was so powerful and I was crying. And it
That
was just amazing.
that's
And
one hell of an experience.
it saved me. It saved me in that moment because you can go into, where you feel worthless again, when people are just being so mean and you can go into this like where you just think it's you. And needless to say, universe took me out of that industry through the pandemic. And catapulted me into I started my healing business right before the pandemic. So I've just been doing that and really living in an abundant mindset. I may not have as much money as I was supposed to, but I am free and I am not surrounded by those types of energies. And I have the time to focus on my daughter and my healing business.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you, how would you describe, or if you could, what a person would look like when they first became your client, and what they would look like once you would say, "I'm done. You are free to go. Let your wings soar."
Yeah.
What how would you kind of describe that again to help somebody go, you know what, that can be me. This is me, because some people just feel like their life or whatever it is that they are experiencing is not good enough for a coach or a mentor, because they look at coaches as a football coach or a soccer coach, somebody
Right.
who's going to stand, like example. So some people are like, well, I don't want to coach. Why? They're going to stand at my bed and yell at me to get up and go to
Right.
the gym. They don't realize that what you do is a coach.
And that's why I use spiritual guide a lot,
Hmm.
because I'm a guiding light for those who, may need just a little bit of
Hmm.
a light, to find the way, just like being a lighthouse, Um, and they can look like anything. They can look completely defeated, and depressed and sad and very down, to just not quite being able to figure out what's making them feel this way. They've got everything together and then, they're in a happy marriage or they're in happy, being with themselves, whatever. It could be anybody, it could really be anybody that shows up. And when they leave, it just depends on the amount of work they want to put in.
What would be your ideal person to work with? How would you describe or define them?
Honestly, anybody.
It doesn't
Um,
matter where they're at in their life.
no, it really does not.
Do you feel that it's easier to work with somebody who is completely lost and just starting out, or they are at a point of about to have a breakthrough and they need that one little piece?
Both.
Which one's
I've
more
always been
exciting?
I love the challenge. I do love the challenges, and
Mhm.
to see like huge results. That's always been kind of my thing, even in romantic partners. I always chose the challenges. Um, but I also love the people who are like, oh my goodness, like it was that simple. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. I had a client who was dealing with the death of her son, and I kind of walked her through that. And it changed her mindset so much in knowing that, his spirit was going to be very much still here.
So let's take that as an example. What was her hang up, or what was not, I'm sorry, not hang up. What was making her feel in that negative state about that loss that she had to let go in order for her to feel better or to move on?
She was really holding on to so much with the situation instead of, because thinking that how dreadful the other side could be.
Mhm.
And she reached out to me and was like, "You are so right. Like, I am so much more at peace because she's not holding on to all of those, you know,
Fears.
traumatic, yes, and traumatic, the fears, but also the traumatic experiences that just became part of her norm.
Hmm.
Like, and this ties into what we were talking about earlier.
Hmm.
Even though they were exhausting, and like being at the hospital all the time and just spending all these hours in the hospital and just being, not eating and not sleeping and all these things that are not good for us, that became part of her norm, and she was fearful of what was on the other side of that. And what has been on the other side is bliss and
And
feeling his spirit. And that was one message that always came through to me was like, he will so send you so many signs and he will so be with you. Like you do not have to worry. And she's seen it and he's come to her and it's just been the most beautiful thing.
do you think anybody can see those signs, or is it something that really has to be taught and pointed out?
Anybody can, of course, but you have to be open and willing to receive. I did an angel reading with a woman who, she said she would see them, but she didn't really believe it. And it took our session to, really for her to understand like that's what this is. And then more started showing up because I opened her up
Mhm.
to the belief that this is real
After the reading or during the reading?
after the reading.
After the reading.
Like, in her when she on her daily and her day to day, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And there's so much more I'm seeing and noticing. And oh my gosh, this you said that and this happened. It's super cool.
Like a pattern recognition almost. Once you are activated to it, you begin to see it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Huh, interesting. What when you're working with clients, what would you say would be your biggest frustration that you feel would help the process along if people would just what's that one thing?
Just being open.
Do you
A
feel
lot of people are
people
blocked, very blocked.
and are they even afraid to open up to you or share information with you that will help you do your job?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
You,
Sometimes, like a lot of the people that come to me feel very comfortable with me.
mhm,
There's just a presence about me that, and that's the presence I want to have. So people can feel very comfortable working with me and knowing that they have a safe space,
mhm,
and that's where it's also very important for me to share my traumas and what I've been through because a lot of people do look at me and they judge. People would say, "Oh, you look like you come from a big house," or "Oh, you look like you have it all," or "You have it all together." I can't tell you how many times I've heard these types of comments, and I'm like, "You have zero clue
yeah,
what I've been through." And it would like blow your mind for you
mhm,
to know all that I've overcome.
mhm.
That's why my work is so good. And that's why my work is so effective because I've lived through these experiences.
If there's one story that you would want to share with the listeners that would help them understand your experience and what brought you here, what would you share with them?
Trigger warning for anybody, that can hear some of sexual abuse as a child and as a teen. I've been through tons of drug use. I've been through alcohol abuse. I've been through eating disorders, harassment and bullying, sexual harassment, um, being the black sheep of the family, being the odd man out. I understand almost a death, lots of death.
Yeah, you said 40 some people.
Hmm.
That's a lot.
Hmm.
I don't think I know that many people that have died.
I know
That's crazy.
it was, and I was writing about death. I'm a poet as well and a writer. I was writing about death in fourth grade. So here's a story. So I wrote a poem in my mom's bed in fourth grade. It was called The Stairway to Heaven, and it was about a man climbing the stairway to heaven. And the next day, we got a phone call that our neighbor, who was very good friends with my sister, Ricky Barzik was his name, that he died in a car
Wow.
crash that night when I was writing that poem.
You
Yeah.
definitely have an intuition for the stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's just been, however, it's always been so minimized by the people closest to me. So that's where it was always so hard for me to kind of step into that power because my fear of judgment,
Hmm.
and there's levels of life. Like I'm like in my third awakening. Okay. So we don't just go through one awakening. Some people do, but one awakening, and then we're always evolving. So, um, I was in one of the greatest spiritual moments of my life, I thought, and then I dated a narcissistic man. And after coming out of that, I had no idea who I was. And for years before that, I was like, I'm Hilary Shawn, and I'm doing the wig work for Bloomingdale's Holiday Windows, and I work with celebrities, and I'm doing this, and it's all that, which was very much ego, but I had it all. I had
Do
my
you
apartment in Brooklyn. I was doing all of those things.
do
And
you
when I came
feel that that experience came into your life in order to shift your mindset away from that egoistic life into a more of a spiritual?
Yes, and a lot of spiritual women need that type of relationship to like level up to where they're meant to be, standing in their power. And there was a point after that relationship, I was looking at a wall in the room I was in, and I was like, if somebody asked me who I was, I wouldn't know what to tell them. And I had never had that like lack of a sense of self.
See, and I feel, me personally, I have a low self-awareness, a low self, whatever you want to call it, but it feels like the more that I'm open and paying attention to others around me, just as I go around life, I feel
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that have very low self-awareness,
Yeah, of
low,
course.
low self-esteem, and even though we all put on an oppressive facade, it seems like lately more and more people are kind of showing their true colors.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah,
Have
because
you
that's
seen
part
that?
of the awakening, the
Right.
massive, the global awakening, that's happening for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, And that facade, that's exactly what it is. Like the ego, or like these people that like think they act like they have it all together. A lot of the time, it's just a facade. It's just a mask.
Right. And social media does a great job of showing others or making it look like people have this amazing life, even though it's just a few snippets and moments. What is your goal with every single client?
That varies. I think just to let it flow,
Okay.
and to let them work at their own pace.
Do you have to push the pace along, or are people good at kind of flowing with you at it? Do you feel
Yeah.
like you have to drag people a lot,
Mm,
or no?
no, sometimes we can just sit with each other, and
Hmm.
that's part of in somatics, just sitting and just allowing someone to just be.
Hmm.
And the different part with me, and that's what sets me apart again, is I've got the healing energy, and it's just a healing quality that just comes along with being in my presence.
Hmm.
So that sets me apart from maybe a traditional therapist or a traditional practitioner.
Hmm.
Um, but it really is just to let them be, and if they can take one little nugget, if I can paint one little picture that they can take with them and they think about often,
Hmm.
then my job is done.
Makes complete sense. And do you feel people take the information and run with it, or is it something that you have to reinforce?
It just depends on the client.
What
It
would you
really
say
depends on the
the
client.
ratio is? Like, the people that I've worked with, one person has taken it and just completely ran with it without me even knowing it, and other people, it's the same problem every day, no matter what I teach them.
It's both. This is where your mathematical mind is like, I need numbers. I
Yes.
need an answer. And I'm like, it's
Right.
not, it's open-ended. And the majority of things for me are open-ended. It's not, for example, I'll explain this to you. And this is the way I love to explain recently what's gone on in my life is I set up so many parameters in love. Okay. So after that toxic relationship and not losing, spirit source removing certain people from my life, because there are a lot of people that will come into my life, and whether they know or they don't, they're using me for my energy and my skills. And I had to learn discernment to know that this person is really not here for me, really here for me, but for the benefit of being friends with me
Hmm.
because of my advice and et cetera, et cetera. So um
How does that
I
make you feel?
I have an understanding of it. And it was sad for a while because there was a lot of people who I loved so much that I had in my life 15 years.
Hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I was like their therapist. I was essentially pulling them out of the mud all the time, and loved it because I love this work, but didn't have any boundaries.
And it was draining you.
No,
No.
because I love it. Like you know what I mean? I can do it. But now I have a child. I have someone else to give my energy to. And yes, it would drain me. So naturally, it just kind of happened, like the, weeding out of these people. And but I was setting up parameters and just saying I would never date younger, never date younger, never, 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 never. And that word is so like, it just
Mhm.
closes everything up. So when I went to Costa Rica, we were there for two months, and we were supposed to be there a month, and we extended. And I just said, I'm opening my heart to whatever is there,
Mhm.
anything, whatever it is, right? And I knew I would sit there, and I'm often just like kind of like a therapist to whoever wants to come along, and I met this one man, and he came up to me, and I invited him over to just have a porch talk. It was like I was having like a red table talk at my,
Mhm.
wherever our hotel was on the beach. So we'll come over and talk, and they needed it. And I knew that they needed it. I know when someone needs something. Um, and then there was another man, a hotel owner. He came and sat with me for like 2 hours, and he was drinking and told me about his divorce. And so that is just how my life has always been. But then there was another one who was just interested and was supposed to come over, didn't show up. And then that turned into a romantic thing. But the age gap was is pretty massive in my brain, younger. But I was
Mhm.
like, this is something I said I would never do. And I allowed myself to do that while I was reading a book called The Universe Has Your Back. And it's like Gabby Bernstein. I have that author. Incredible book. And everything I was reading, talk about synchronicities, everything I was reading in that book was in alignment with what was happening
Mhm.
in my life at that moment. And when I tell you, removing those parameters, I learned so much from this little bit of time with this younger person because it's about our souls. Our souls were connected.
Mhm.
There were so many synchronicities down to the fact that this person's name was my dog's name. And my dog's name is Giancarlo. It is not like it is
Not a
not
common name.
it is not a common name. And like these synchronicities, and when you find those synchronicities happening, you have to trust it, and you have to know that that is a sign from universe, from source, that this is meant to be happening, because that doesn't mean that this person is the love of your life or like you're going to marry this person, but it is for your growth.
It's the next step that you got to take in order to get to the next plateau in your journey. And we all
Yeah.
have to experience that. I was just thinking about this the other day because my son, who's way too young to be talking about this, but he was talking about girls and boyfriends, girlfriends, and he's like, I hope that she's going to be my girlfriend, until the day that I die. And I'm just like, I don't know how to break it to you, buddy, but things come and go, and you got to kind of get used to that, because if you have that mindset of, oh my god, this is it forever, when it does end, it's going to crush you. So it's teaching that thought process, that viewpoint that you just explained, that I feel would probably help a lot of people's lives.
Oh my goodness. And to be honest with you, that was one of my biggest lessons throughout my life, was the art of letting go. I am constantly being taught the art of letting go. And I believe, that was one of my purposes here, and maybe in the beginning of my life, and that's why I've experienced so much death,
Hmm.
because that really had taught me, because I always held on to things like that, like how you're explaining your son.
Hmm.
Like I never wanted to lose them, and they always end, forever and ever.
Right,
And
right.
all of these experiences have taught me the art of letting go. And through this was the art of letting go of control around romantic relationships, and just letting it flow and letting it be what it's going to be. And how much more joy I found in that than being like, it has to be this, and he has to do this, and I have to feel this way, and it can't be like this, and putting all those parameters. We
Hmm.
just have to like break free of all of those walls.
And do you feel that a lot of people are held back by the parameters that they set for themselves, which are false?
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why do we do that? Outside of fear and social pressures, which not everybody experiences, and the ones that do probably experience it differently. Why is it that we are kind of almost like pre-programmed to always have a set of parameters that we feel we need or should have, even though it could be the complete opposite?
Conditioning. Conditioning, comfortability. We've said that. Um,
The common word
fear,
I'm hearing is comfort, 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 comfort.
yeah, and fear. I mean, fear really is like the big one. Like that's where it all comes from. You know what I mean? That's where all of that is coming from. Like there's not really another way, a lot of things come out of fear. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like that's the umbrella. And then all the other things that trickle down from that main feeling.
And fear is something that we have subconsciously. It's a part of our nervous system, but yet we seem to operate on it a lot more than we should be. I don't think we as creatures we're designed to constantly operate in a fight or flight status. But yet,
Right.
seems like 90% of people are spending 100% of their day in that state. Um, would What advice would you give to the general public of what can people do on a daily basis, small thing that would slowly improve their lives?
First thing, make your bed. Make your bed.
Second,
Huge one is make your bed. Plant your feet on the ground. Second, envision yourself just planting roots into the ground. Okay. That's going to be grounding. All
so
right.
not just putting the feet down, but you got to envision yourself
Mhm.
connecting to the ground, almost morphing into the ground.
Yes. And
Okay.
now about for me, like for some people that may be scary because they may feel like confined. So if that feels too solid and too much, then just plant your feet on the ground and focus on your breathing, focus on your breath. And envision white light entering your body as you breathe in through your nose. This is a big one. This is the one that I usually go with.
Mhm.
And then on the exhale, you open your mouth slightly and exhale all the darkness, the stress, the worries, anything
Mhm.
that's bothering you. And as you inhale, you're inhaling white light, or it could be water, and you just want water to flow through your body and just cleanse your body. So that's the one. And you repeat that until you're feeling like you're ready to start your day. That's a great start to the day.
Mhm.
When I went and had my heart monitored, they did the heart monitor on me, and the woman came in and she was like, "Did anyone ever tell you that you have a low heart rate?" And I said, "No, but it makes sense. I teach breath work." And she was like,
Mhm.
"Ah," she's like, "That makes sense because when they put the monitor on you," she said, "everybody's heart rate goes up.
Yeah,
Everyone, because
and
they're
you
getting
stay
noticed,
calm.
being touched and everything." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yours went down." And
Mhm.
she did the stethoscope. She was like chuckling. She's like, "That is just incredible."
That is the one thing that I have always been told also. My blood pressure is always very low, and
Mhm.
my heart rate, my resting rate is 58 to 60. And people are like, "How are you getting so low?" I can barely drop below 73. I'm like, "Breathe. Take a deep breath, relax, stop being like this."
Yep.
That's just going to cause things to break and fracture.
Yep.
So the things that you said earlier. Um, would you advise people to do that before they touch their cell phone in the morning?
Absolutely.
Okay. Your alarm, lights, whatever just went on. Hillary just woke up. Describe your process until you touched your cell phone. What does that look like?
Well, you turn the alarm off,
Okay.
but meditation,
How
you
long do
know,
you meditate for?
a few breaths, meditation, usually 10 minute in the morning.
Okay. So like as soon as you wake up, you go into meditation, or do you let your brain kind of come to so you don't fall back asleep?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. I would just do a few breaths, really just, maybe you want to do the grounding before you do that and
So
then go into meditation.
let's start from scratch. This is you. You just turned off the alarm. What are you doing next? Describe to me your morning routine.
Sitting up in my bed,
Okay.
doing a few stretches maybe while I'm sitting there in my bed, doing a few deep breaths, and then going into meditation.
Okay. Do you meditate just sitting right then and there, or do you get into a certain position?
Nope. I will sit right there.
Okay. And what are you using as your thought process for the meditation?
I'll do a guided morning meditation
Okay.
usually. Okay. And just golden light. Or if it's a sunny day, like when it gets warmer out, I will sun gaze. I will go and just let the sun hit my face and, just really let that light penetrate. And as you're meditating and you have that light hitting your face, you'll see you have visuals, it
Hmm.
really starts to become like this bright light. And then your brain takes you where it wants to take you.
Interesting. I've never tried that before in sunlight like
Yeah,
that. Okay. And then
definitely.
after meditation, is there more priming that you do for your day, or do you just start from there?
I always light an incense. And incense is like, and I know people have negative, thoughts around that. And listen, we all have our vices. And that is my offering to the universe,
Hmm.
to source is lighting my incense. And that's also like it's ritualistic. And I always light my incense and then I drink my water. Sometimes I'll do lemon water. It's very good. And we're trying to keep our body alkaline. That's also what this superfood, process
Mhm.
is, alkalinizing our body. Um, and then I take my supplements and I do my beet juice. It's Can't Beat This. It's called. That's part of Purium as well.
Mhm.
Um, Can't Beat This is beet and guava. Has a
Nice.
little bit of natural occurring caffeine. I take my aminos, and the stamina I have to go to do spin class is crazy from that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you do your exercise in the morning
Mhm.
before breakfast.
Oh yeah.
Do you follow like a keto style diet, or like what type of diet would you say that you follow?
I'm on Purium, like strictly on Purium. So come back, then you'll do the shake. You can have their flex foods and there are lifestyle meals. So flex foods can be you have an unlimited amount of cucumbers and celery. And then like I'll usually do hummus. I'll usually do organic greens. And then I'll put some hummus with some sweet organic peppers, organic croutons sometimes, depending on, how much inflammation I'm feeling in my body.
Mhm.
Can put some celery, carrots, whatever it is in there. And then I have like a sesame ginger organic dressing that I put on top of that. That's usually, I'm very much a creature of habit. I know what works for my body. Also,
Mhm.
being intuitive and being in tune, I'm very sensitive to foods. So I
Same.
have to really, really, really be careful with what I put in my body.
I hear you on that one 100%. There are so many things that I want to eat that are just delicious, but I know that if I do, it's going to hurt. And
Mhm.
I've chosen now not to take that route.
That's also being part of being a spiritual being.
Right. And in a way that is protecting your energy, is it not?
Yes, of course.
Because
Absolutely.
right, yeah, I somebody said, I don't remember if it was a meme that I read or somebody said this, but they said, "Do you really think the person making the burger at the drive-through place has a positive attitude when they make your food?" And energy is transferred through food.
Yep.
Just
Oh my gosh.
none of us look at it that way. We don't think of it because we think we're just animals who are feeding our hunger, but it's actually energy transfer.
I have a story for you. So I went to this Buddhist monastery in New Hampshire. I went
Hmm.
to a Buddhist monastery and you can stay for as long as you want, as long as you were like at that point we were cleaning out the woods for their yurts. They were building yurts for all the monks.
Hmm.
So that was like our job there. And we would chant with them and we would meditate with them and we would do. But the food, okay, now I have this gift of being able to taste the love in food.
Hmm.
So the food, again, and its energy was so delicious. And like it was just like buttered noodles and like it was
Just
just
basic things, but it tasted great.
it was all donation based. And it was just from these people that just loved so much and it tasted. And I just specifically remembered the buttered noodles, but like so good. And I
Right.
just wanted more because there was so much love and such beautiful energy in this food. It was like one of my favorite places to go. And it was just so, oh, it was just so magnificent. Just the feeling and just the taste and the love in that food. It was great. It
That's
was great.
interesting.
And
It-
also, people can do walking meditations. I'm sorry, I just wanted to
that's
say
okay.
this. Walking, I was taught, there to do a walking meditation. You can be walking in nature, and that's meditation. Like a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves, like they have to sit there and be still, and I can't move, and I have to do this, and and that really makes people feel like constricted, and also like their anxiety shoots through the roof. It makes them feel more anxious. You can be walking, and that's a walking meditation.
Hmm.
You know,
Do you have to be saying something in order to kind of drive the thoughts, or just let them run?
yeah, just try and try your best not to be thinking and just be taking in all the beauty that surrounds you.
That seems tough for even me. I can only imagine a person that's never trained. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. We're gonna have to sit down again and kind of dive deeper into some of these topics because it just seems like there's a lot of things that can be used to help people, but people are just not aware of them. They're not educated in them of how these things can help them, or they think that it's just some kind of voodoo crap, and
Right,
they don't believe
right,
it, but yet they'll pop a pill even though it's a placebo and
right,
experience
right,
the
right.
result of a placebo. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm with you there. Trust me. I know.
Any last message that you would want to leave people of why they should be contacting you and having you be their coach, lifestyle guide, with the spiritual realm versus anybody else out there?
I'm not a huge fan of like selling, especially selling myself. Energetically, you will be guided in my direction if you are meant to be working with me. That is
Love
how
that.
it, yeah, that's how it's always worked for me. And it's always, that's just how it happens.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I realized we were only going to go for like an hour. Now we're almost hitting the